This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Walter, this is such an exciting moment for me because we've been friends, lifelong friends, really.
Right.
You are such an accomplished person on so many levels. Now, no, you don't. You're going to say no, but this is just really a treat. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
You know, as the son of President Everett Derryberry and First Lady Joan Derryberry, you really grew up at Tennessee Tech, right?
I did. We went there when I was 5 years old.
You were born in Murray, Kentucky?
No, actually, I was born in Martin, Tennessee, when Daddy was on the faculty at UT Junior College. It was then. It's now UT Martin.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then from there you came?
When June was a year old and I was 3, we moved to Murray.
Okay.
And we stayed there while they built their forever house there.
Oh.
They planned to live in it the rest of their lives. And 3 years later, they were gone.
Wow. And came to Tennessee Tech.
Yes.
And were the longest serving president and first lady in the history of the university.
Yes, so far.
So far, that's right. So what was it like growing up on campus?
It was like having a great big playground. I mean, we spent a lot of time on the campus. I remember there used to be a tennis court right outside Dean Smith's office. The building was sort of T-shaped at that time, and it was in the corner of a T. And so we played over there. We played on the tennis court. Daddy played tennis a lot there in the first few years before he got too fat. Anyway, we grew up all over the campus. We had a friend, Mary Lynn Carroll, whose father was Otis Carroll, who was the superintendent of buildings and grounds. And they lived just across the campus from us. So we would meet and play on the campus. And then I had 2 other friends whose parents were dorm parents. But Good Pasture, his mother was a widow, and she was the dorm mother for the West Hall, which was a woman's dorm at that time, which is now Bartow.
Oh, okay.
Hall. And then Jimmy Philpo, whose father was the dorm parent, along with his wife, of what was then called East Hall, which is now the Geology Building. I don't remember its name.
Oh, so they were all right there on the quad.
Everything was on the quad, except for Henderson.
All right. I think when your father came, there were like 12 buildings total or something.
You know, I never counted them. I don't know.
Well, tremendous growth during that period of time.
Oh, my.
And your mom was so enthusiastic about music. She was an incredible pianist. And so your influence of music and art and theater is natural, right?
Well, it's inherited anyway.
Yes. So what was it like? Your mother's British, and tell me a little bit about your parents.
Well, of course, you know, Daddy was the first person to graduate from UT with a straight A average in the history of that university. And then he was a Rhodes Scholar, and he went to St. John's College in Oxford. And importantly, he joined the Oxford Choral Society, and they were putting on an opera, which was the Der Freischütz by Carl Maria von Weber. And Mother happened to also be in the Oxford Opera Chorus. And they were put together because they were of a similar height that looked proper to the director for them to dance the polka together when everybody else danced the polka. So that's how they met. And in fact, Mother said she was standing on stage one day and the door at the rear of the auditorium opened and she said, "In came the most beautiful man I'd ever seen in my life." And it was Daddy.
Yes.
And so they got together and stayed together for his whole time there. At the time he went over there, he was engaged to somebody, a lady he'd met at the University of Tennessee. So when he finished at Oxford, he was there 4 years, and he got the M.A. Oxon, O-X-O-N, degree, which was the equivalent of American PhD, but they didn't grant anything higher than that level to foreigners at that time.
Oh, wow.
So, but he told Mother that he would go back to Tennessee. He had a job teaching at Burritt College over in Spencer. And he said, if I can disengage myself with honor, I will come back for you. And so the letter came, and he said he had disengaged, and he would be over in August to marry.
And did they marry in England?
Yes, in Torrington, mother's hometown.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I was baptized into the Church of England. I'm an official member of the Church of England.
Wow.
I bet there's darn few of those in Cookeville.
I bet you're right. I bet you're right.
Any rate, so they were married there, and then set off on a honeymoon, and then on board ship to the United States, and that was that.
Now, you really, I mean, your parents are like the royal family in this town, and so that places you sort of as the prince there.
Prince Charming.
Yes, that's right.
I actually used to call myself the first boy.
Oh, did you? I love that. I love that. And so your dad had to be super busy, and your mom had to be super busy during that time. What was it like in your family?
Well, we always had somebody staying in the house, either your grandfather or your grandmother on the other side.
Well, because my grandparents worked for your family.
Yes.
Right?
Mrs. Thomas worked in the house, and George Robinson, your grandfather, took care of the grounds.
Right. Yeah, and that's why we've always felt like family.
Right, because June and I did not have a grandfather in this country. The only thing, and so we adopted George as our grandfather.
Right.
And he's your grandfather, so.
It's a great thing.
We're cousins.
We are cousins. If not by blood, certainly by spirit.
Absolutely, yeah.
So your mom had a lot to do with connecting that town and gown sort of,
right.
I guess, separation that had sort of been here at Tennessee Tech.
In fact, when we came here in 1940, they were at odds. The town and the gown were just like this.
And that means the townspeople and the university people
And the
just
townspeople did not
mix,
accept
right?
the university people at all until Mother got here, and then she was determined to bridge that gap. So she started doing things that got the townspeople into her home, and so one thing led to another, and she became president of the Book Lovers Club. She's a huge reader, and so she became president of the Book Lovers, and then from that position she decided there needed to be an organization to meld the two peoples, and so that became the Town and Gown Club.
That's so great. Well, she was such a gracious, wonderful person.
Well, yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Yes, yes, warm and loving, and just, you know, she made you feel good. Every time you were with her, she just made you feel so good.
I always thought she was the world's greatest mother.
Yeah.
And of course she was to me.
That's right. Now, you also were a significant medical doctor in our community. You were the first doctor to come back as a specialist, right, here in Cookeville?
Well, I guess you could say that. Actually, there was a radiologist here, Mac Williams, and he was a specialist. Jerry Lowe, Dr. Jerry Lowe, was trained as a surgeon, but when he came back home, he couldn't make it as a pure surgeon, so he did a sort of a family practice.
Okay. So what year did you come back to?
1966.
Why did you decide to become an OBGYN? You've delivered 7,000 babies.
That's true.
Which is amazing.
It is. A lot of lost sleep, I guess you'd have to say.
Yes.
But when I finished medical school, I had to go be an intern, and I did a rotating general internship at Cook County Hospital in Chicago. And when I got there, I spent anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks on the various services, surgery, medicine, so on, pediatrics, OB. The only thing that I really enjoyed was OB. I couldn't see being a pediatrician because you can't talk to those babies. And so that was the only thing that called to me. So during my period I had 6 weeks on various OB specialties and subspecialties, and I said, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So when I got done, I did.
Were there people who really highly influenced you in the medical profession?
Well, not really until I got to Vanderbilt for my residency, and then Dr. Lonnie Burnett was the chairman of the department, and he's one of the most fantastic men I've ever seen and the most knowledgeable person about and about OB and about GYN and anatomy of all that. He was wonderful. I just revere him to this day.
You know, you are so loved, Walter. When I'm with you in town and someone walks up and they want their 30-year-old son to have their picture made with you because you delivered that baby.
Yeah.
And countless times that happens. And I'm sure with 7,000 children, it happens often.
Yeah.
How
I
do you
raised a
feel?
village.
You did raise a village. So how do you feel about that when you see these young people now?
Wonderful.
I know you won the Robertson Award from Cookeville Regional Medical Center in 2003. And let me just read something that some of the nurses said about you. Because it's one thing to please the parents, but it's something else to please nurses. And they had great affection and admiration for you. And they said that you were calm and reassuring and attentive to the patient's comfort and pain, that you were respectful and thoughtful and dapper.
Oh,
How about
goodness.
that? With quite a sense of humor. And just the very best doctor at delivering babies that I've ever worked with was what one of the nurses said in particular. So how does that make you feel about these people you worked with?
Well, I loved all those nurses. I really did. And I loved what I did. I mean, I just loved delivering babies. I would do it still if it weren't beyond my abilities, capacities physically. But anyway, I didn't mind losing sleep. I didn't mind getting up at night. And I just loved delivering those babies. And I loved holding them in my hands as newborns and presenting them to the mother. And it was a trip. Every time it was a trip. And I just loved it.
That's so great. It's so true. All the things they said about you is so true.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I hope so.
Yeah. Do you remember the first baby you delivered?
I do. It was while I was in medical school. And when we were on OB, the so-called labor line, we were generally assigned a patient. And you had to sit with that patient, and then as a reward, you got to deliver her. Well, my patient was a rather large lady who'd had several children, so they said, she's a multiparous patient, which meant she'd had several children. She said, so you can deliver her safely. So the time came for her to go to the delivery room, and she kept saying, oh, I want this to be a girl. I have all these boys, and I don't have a girl. Her name's going to be Susie. And I said, wonderful, we'll just get Susie out here for you. And so they delivered Susie, and it was a boy. And so then the guy who was giving her anesthesia felt her belly, and he said, hey, there's another one in there. And I said, oh my goodness. And so I delivered the second twin. And then he said, you know, you should name those babies Derry and Barry after your doctor. And I'll be darned, she did.
No way. That is great. Yeah. You have any idea where Derry and Barry are?
I think they're still in Memphis, and I think they've been on WCTE at some point on one of the things like Tennessee Crossroads.
Oh, really?
They're artists now in Memphis.
No, well, you must have done something there. You must have sprinkled
Didn't damage them, that's for sure.
A little art juice on them there. That's awesome. Do you remember the last baby?
No.
No. After 7,000, I guess it would be.
Well, it was just that I was not looking forward to giving up the practice, and so I would have been in a funk, blue funk. But I had to do it because Alice was sick. She was dying with breast cancer, and I couldn't just leave her alone. I had to be with her, so I had to give up OB, or all of my practice, in fact.
Now, Alice, your wife, did you meet in medical school?
I was in medical school when we met, but we actually met in church.
Oh, really? She
was singing in the choir at St. Mary's Cathedral, and for some reason, I decided to start singing in the choir, and I did. And that's how we met. I was a tenor, and she was an alto. So at that point, the tenors and the altos sat together, and the basses and sopranos sat on the other side. Right. We were on each side of the chancel. So anyway.
Well, that's ironic that's how your parents met, and that's how you met singing.
As contrasted to both my children who met their wives in a bar.
Well, that's okay too, isn't it?
I guess it had to be.
They're probably singing to the jukebox.
Yeah, right. And their marriages have turned out well also.
Yes,
so
beautiful
doesn't matter
children.
where you meet your person.
No,
you know,
that's right.
It's just you find the right one.
That's right. So your children, tell a little bit about your children.
Well, I'm terribly proud of them. They're both nice-looking boys. Doug is the older one. He's named after his grandfather's. He's Douglas Everett. Alice's father was Douglas, and mine was Everett. Right now, he's playing in the orchestra pit for a musical on Broadway. In addition to which, he's also the string section of the Sesame Street Band. If you ever watch Sesame Street, he does all the strings, the guitar, the banjo, and the mandolin.
Wow.
So if you ever hear that.
Well, we watch Sesame Street a lot.
Yeah, right. So then my younger son, Pitt, and he's named, as a matter of fact, that's a strange name, but it's his real name, P-I-T-T. He's named for his maternal great, I think 3 greats, grandfathers, who was William Pitt, who was the Prime Minister for George III of England.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and the Pitt
Wow.
family was from Devonshire, and of course, mother's family was from Devonshire. And so, anyway, my grandfather, mother's father, was William Pitt Rue. That was his name. And I had always said if I had more than one first son, I wanted to name him William Pitt Rue Derryberry. So that's Pitt's name.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, he's now gone through the ranks at Western Kentucky University. He is now full professor and chairman of his department of psychology.
Wow. That's very impressive.
Yeah, he's doing real well. They're both doing real well.
Oh, yeah.
I can't talk about my sons or my grandchildren without mentioning my daughters-in-law. Doug's wife is a physician. She practices in Manhattan and New York, and she's got all kinds of diplomas and certificates, and she's just a wonderful, warm human being. I just wish she were close enough that she could be my own doctor, but at any rate, that isn't the way it is. Then my other daughter-in-law, Pitt's wife, she was Amanda Edgman, and she was a tech graduate, and she is now working in a bank in Bowling Green, Kentucky. She's a very smart girl, very savvy. They're both wonderful girls. I couldn't have chosen better for my sons had I had the choice of all the women in the world. They're great. I have 4 grandchildren, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Starting from the youngest, he's Justice, and then Jane. They're both in New York, and then Will, and then Caroline. Will is named he's William Edgman. That's Amanda's maiden name. And Pitt, when he was a little kid, always wanted to be called Will, but Alice and I just refused. So he got back at us because he named his son Will.
That's great. Well, I know you're proud of them, proud of your grandchildren, your beautiful grandchildren. What's the most important thing for you in family?
Love. I love them all, and some people don't understand how I can put out that much love to so many people under so many different sort of ways, and I find that there is no limit to how much one can love. Yeah. You know, I love you in a different way from the way I love my children, but that doesn't mean I love you any the less.
Right, right.
And I loved my parents differently than what I loved my children or my wife, but still in all, the human kind has an infinite capacity to love. And I loved my work, I loved the patients, I loved the nurses, I loved my children. You know, you just find ways to love more and more all the time.
When you think about all the things you've done, what are the things that just are the most precious to you?
One, playing the organ at church. I was the organist and choir master at St. Michael's Episcopal Church here in town for 37 years, ever since moving to Cookeville. And the other would be theater. I've done a fair amount of stage work, and I loved that. So those were the 2 main things, looking back on my life, that I have treasured.
You're a fantastic actor, but you told me recently that you didn't start out to go audition.
No.
That surprises me.
Well, I was sort of drafted. But then if you knew Marjorie Hargrove in those days, you knew that she sort of drafted people.
Right.
And she drafted me, so I played the part of Ali Hakim, the Persian peddler in Oklahoma. And that was my first time.
And then
that
you
was
did
in
a lot of...
1970.
Okay.
And then every 2 years I would try out for another role, except I'd have to say it wasn't really trying out. It was just buttering up Marjorie, because she would basically let me do whatever I wanted to do.
Well, you just were great. And you were perfect for every part you played. You're just perfect for it.
Yeah, well, I guess. I don't know. But I certainly, I guess it's method acting, because I put myself inside that person. Mm-hmm. And it became natural. It became me. I mean, I became that person became me.
Right. Now, you also are an incredible art collector. Why do you like to collect art?
Just because it appeals to me. I love it. I mean, I guess that's a third thing that I have a great love for in my life. Ever since I bought that first painting, I was just consumed with the urge to buy paintings, to have paintings, and I've indulged, I fortunately have been able to indulge myself in most anything I wanted, so I did.
Well, good for you. Good for the artist too, right?
I reckon, yeah. I used to haunt the Ben Lee show, which was out, Reba Bacon had a clothesline show every fall, and I would go out there and just buy the place out. And woe be unto anybody who liked a painting that I bought, because I always squeaked in there and got it first. So.
Good. Well, Walter, we're going to run out of time before I have a chance to talk to all the things I want to talk to you about. But I do want to talk to you about your time on the school board.
Oh.
You ran for the school board. You served children not only in delivering them, but then here in this way of supporting their education. Why did you do that, and what did you gain from that? At
the time I did that, my partner at the office was Jim Gray. His wife Marilyn was on the the county commission. Mm-hmm. And one day Jim said to me, Marilyn wants to know if you'd be interested in being on the school board, because we had just lost a school board member from my district, District 1. So I said, well, sure, not even thinking about it. But Daddy had always wanted to be on the school board after he retired from Tech, but he never got a chance. So I said I would do it. So we had 3 people vying for the position, and we had to go before the county commission and be interviewed. Well, in the long run, I was selected. So I started, and I filled out the remaining 6 months of my predecessor's term, mm-hmm. and then I was sort of infected with it. I liked it so much, and then I ran twice. Mm-hmm. So and what did you gain from that? A greater understanding for and appreciation of the process of education. I have remained interested in that, though I tried not to when I left the school board. I thought term limits should be implied, and I said 2 was enough. Mm-hmm. So I told them that when I left, and trying to induce some of the other members, 20 and 30-year veterans, to consider term limits for themselves, but they wanted to do it till they died, I reckon. But anyway, so I left it, but I have never lost my interest in education. Yeah. Of course, I grew up with it from a kid, with living on the campus and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, in closing, we don't do the Christmas parade anymore. People will know that you and I have been partners on WCTE's coverage of the Christmas parade for over 25 years.
Yes.
And I just thank you for that. Really,
well,
because it was always such a joy.
Me. You're the reason I did it, because you called me up and said, "Will you do this?"
I know.
And I couldn't turn down my cousin.
That's it. That's right. Well, it was always a joy for me, and I know how much you love public broadcasting.
Yes, I do.
And you watch it and you support it. And what else do you want people to know about you? What else? What is something that maybe people don't know that...
I think I'm fairly transparent, and most people know most things about me, but what I want them to know is that I want to be remembered as a good citizen, a good parent, a good doctor, and be able to come to my grave and read the nice words that'll be on my tombstone.
Well, I hope that's a long time off.
Well, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm 80, so it's not far off.
Oh, no. Well, Walter, thank you. This has been a joy for me. And as always, anytime I spend with you is a joy for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've loved every minute of it.
Thank you, friend.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.